there, it's Ryan McMahon doing another video. This one's going to be on the number 9 out of our base 10 system. Why 9 is said to be the complete number, or the number of God. Now, this concept is actually going to be hard to discuss. It's really, really abstract. So you might want to pause the video as I read from this book and think about or meditate on some of the words. The reason why I'm not really explaining it on my own is because this explanation is from the book The Light of Egypt, which is by Thomas h.Burgoyne. It was written 120 years ago, and I just don't think there's any other writing that I've ever come across that explains it better. So I'm just going to read directly from The Light of Egypt. And here we go. There are only certain fundamental truths that are true per se, which possess definite reality. They are 9 in number, and I suppose can be finally reduced to one, a trinity of trinities. The first trinity is the primary concept of all things, which has neither beginning nor end, unconditioned, therefore boundless. Okay, here he's talking about the nature of infinity as it relates to 3 trinities. 3, 3, and 3 equal 9, and 9 can really be reduced to just 1, as Pythagoras has shown that all numbers can be reduced to just 1. Okay, continuing on. For all speculative purposes, the first trinity is mind, substance, and motion, may be considered as intelligence, ether, or force. And the outcome of this triune concept is the evolution of the grand something upon the entire fabric of the universe depends. And this is consciousness. The impersonal becomes, as it were, personal, and there comes into being the thing that thinks, apart from the universal thought. Okay, so here he's talking about all of infinity, which is stillness, causal still light, giving itself motion, which is actually dividing itself, and then creating, in motion, creates a difference in itself. And that motion, or that difference, is actually the ego, the part that does the thinking. Okay, continuing on. The universal thought. From this comes the next or second trinity. I am, God is, the universe exists. So here's the third trinity. I am, God is, and the universe exists. Now this trinity, you have to remember, is born out of thought. Thought would be the first motion of stillness, or infinite God. This is very different from the first trinity because it contains only one indisputable fact, which is, I am. This it knows. The I am, just a segue here, the I am refers to really a lot of the ancient teachings. Ancient Egypt held this as their main mission statement. Hinduism held this as well. And even some of the Olmec Toltec, which became Mayans, hold this as well. And even some of the Eastern philosophies of the Tao, and which gave birth to, Hinduism, Buddhism, they also hold this belief, I am. Continuing on. It believes God and is that the universe exists. It thinks because it sees. It can see the universe, but it cannot see God. You see, we are now getting into the realms of appearances. And this is because the thing that thinks, which is consciousness, not being the universal mind, but the entity or differentiated atom of it, is not the universe, therefore reduced as it were from knowing the unknowable. It can only see and think. and the consequence of this idea must always depend on what it does not see. Okay, this is very abstract, very heavy, but I'll try to break it down. What Burgoyne is saying is that the universal mind is differentiated, so therefore it is different. It is an atom of itself. It's split. Therefore, it's a new entity, a new circle within a sphere, a new center, you could say. So it can only see and think. So the consequence of it being designed to only see and think means that it has to depend on what it cannot see. Okay, what it cannot see in this case is infinite God, or infinite consciousness, or infinity itself. Okay, moving on. The God idea is simply the overwhelming conviction, the consciousness of the awful powers by which it finds itself surrounded, tremendously greater than itself. Okay, this is a key point. Burgoyne also talks about spirituality and the soul and all this sort of thing, but he also touches on atheism. And this is where the atheist, basically, according to Burgoyne, becomes just completely stuck in the rational mind and doesn't realize that it has really a higher self or a higher consciousness which created it. It's basically extreme denial or extreme narcissism to be atheist. Continuing on. The last Trinity is life, change, and creation. And this is at last on earth. Everything is alive. There is no death, only change, eternal change, and the idea, the thing that thinks, creates, and is thus conscious microcosm, is patterned after the boundless, unconscious macrocosm. Okay, this is straight up Hermetic teaching, as above, so below. Macrocosm, microcosm. Basically that God is within man, and that man is the temple of God itself. However, there's a point in which man cannot comprehend all of infinity, because it was created as this atomic structure, as this atom, this differentiated part of all of infinity. Okay, moving on. This is a very simple little primer of spiritual and material truth, in which great truths that would require big books to explain are reduced to their simplest primal concepts. And while there is nothing beyond which the mind of man can conceive, there is infinite space for theories and isms to grow between the lines. But remember that man has no friend but humanity itself. His gods and devils are found useless and powerless against the genius of man. The live green earth is his mother, and the earth and all that dwells therein are by right his divine right of possession. The stars of heaven look down upon him, but there is no sympathy in their light, no companionship in the real sense. But the earth looks up and bids him rest. She supports him and gives him of all she possesses of life and beauty. She produces the flowers that gladden his heart of his childhood, and the harvest, the rich harvest that gives strength to his manhood. And later she will cover up the useless mortal part of him beneath the green grassy mound of her bosom, down upon which the distant stars, all unconscious of him or his destiny, will look without pity. So thank God, the great, inconceivable, universal God of the infinite creation, that man exists, that he lives and moves and has his being in every stage of existence, from the living granite foundations of our Mother Earth to the angelic glory that surrounds the soul and sways the scepter of Ra. Okay, Ra is the highest aspect of sun or light or God in ancient Egypt. Okay, we're almost finished here. Hopefully that particular part you guys can kind of pause and think about, It's pretty straightforward. It's just tough language because it's talking about the nature of God, which is, obviously is tough language. Continuing on. God, man, and the universe, and these three resolve into two as eternal mind and eternal substance or ether. Motion itself is only the interaction of these two, the great arcana being. That spirit and matter are at last one, under different forms of expression, mind alone being eternal and consciousness immortal. There is a difference between these two. Mind is God without beginning and without end. The universe of mind is the universe of mind is the subconsciousness of deity, and differentiated consciousness is an individualized atom of God. Okay, there he is re-edifying that individualized consciousness or differentiated consciousness, which is man, this bubble, this being, this sphere that was made and given life by God, is an individualized atom of God. Now, this is exactly what the Vedic scriptures say, that soul is an individualized piece of spirit, or that man is an individualized atom of God, or that man is like the ray and God is like the sun. In essence, they are the same thing, but still differentiated. Okay, continuing on. It is an evolution per se to which the whole universe is progressing, but to which it can never attain the end, because it is both illimitable in bounds and inconceivable in results. Hence, to come back nearer to ourselves, we see that it is in order and quite natural that if the measure of consciousness attained by the evolving monad when the state of man is reached does not or cannot awaken itself to itself, but is only a reflection of the earthly Maya. Okay, Maya means illusion, so it's only a reflection of the material illusion, is what he's saying. Then it can have no vitality left at death of the body to keep its grip upon the spiritual attraction of its ego. Its failure to realize itself is the signature which it has affixed to its own spiritual death warrant, and unless the monad can hold on its way and finally coalesce with its ego, it goes, like the body, back into the universal womb and tomb of the universe. Okay, I know that's a lot to think about. Again, maybe rewind and pause this stuff. But he's talking about man's potential to change his consciousness or raise his consciousness into knowing infinity. Okay, and then the last statement here of this video. Life is the final mystery of God. The old philosopher who wrote those lines knew more than appears upon the surface. It means that to solve the problem of life is to exhaust the mysteries of God, to be equal to him or it. And as this is impossible, the answer is clear. The problem cannot be solved. Thank you guys for listening. Okay, so just finishing up this concept of 9 being the number of completion. And yes, these are heavy concepts, but 9 is broken down into 3 trinities. So to a lot of the ancients, the number 3 was actually more important than the number 1. 3 was important to the Druids, the Taoists, the Buddhists, and even to some degrees the Hindus, and to the Toltecs and to the shamans of the Americas. The reason why is because they realized something very important, very intrinsic, that we, I think today, most people overlook. We overlook this because we're taught to. We're sort of sold a little bit of a lie that the modern world, modern technology, rationalism, reason will somehow, someday, find the answers to everything. You know, find the answers to the edge of the universe, when it began. You know, find the God particle, so to speak. This is totally flawed thinking according to the ancients. And here's why. If you really look around you in nature, which is all you really can do in order to ascertain your own existence and what's going on around you, why you're here, how you're here, and how you relate to being here. If you look around, there is nothing in the universe that is singular. There is no one thing, with one exception. Okay, first, there's not one leaf, there's not one tree, there's not one sun, there's not one star, there's not one person, there's not one eye, there's not one hair. There's nothing in the universe that is one except the entirety of the universe itself. So this is infinity. And this is why we will never be able to comprehend it with our limitation, with our reason, with our mind. And the only way that we really, truly tap into infinite consciousness is through being. So, there's a conundrum there. Many philosophies, many teachers will try to tell you what the nature of being is, and then they'll try to point to a path that will lead you there. But the true mystic that's honest with himself or herself doesn't deny the existence of God, doesn't pretend to know how to express it. If they're honest with themselves, they know that it is intrinsically found in the core of being. And the core of being is infinity. So that's it. The trinities of three actually are more prevalent in nature. You see them in nature. We can relate to them in nature. And we don't see this oneness. However, the oneness is still there. It is the only thing that is actually one throughout our entire existence. Something to think about. Please feel free to comment. My influences here, obviously Thomas h.burgoyne, and then also I'm heavily influenced by Michael Tessarian in his existential psychology. There's a lot of other influences as well. Please see my other videos and you'll find those. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment.